I think we have to open this conversation with the title, which we learned this morning is Onyx Storm. Oh, I love it. Like the second we saw, it was accidentally leaked by Barnes & Noble early before the announcement on Good Morning America. Whoops. But no one works harder than Reddit, and the book Reddit specifically. It was immediately taken down, but someone had screenshotted the email that they got in regards to it, and it blew up the internet. So we learned it a little bit early, but the second it was dropped, it was like, yes. Oh my God. Yes. I love it.
I love that it's different than I expected, but still on brand, especially with the two words where the first describes the second. I personally thought that the title was going to include silver, specifically because it refers to Violet's hair. And I thought that was what Rebecca was trying to say with the black and white photos. Hey, Onyx is very close to silver. It's just describing Xaden instead of Violet here. And I just love how Onyx fits so well for Xaden. We know a lot of readers were speculating that the title was going to include something related to the squad structure in the writer's quadrant, like for instance, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. And so people were thinking that this would be Claw or another dragon element that is used for Besgaia's military structure. But hey, I love this. And I also think that it opens up so many other possibilities beyond what we've already known about our story too. I also just absolutely love how the second word is storm. While we can guess all day long what this title will mean, I also ultimately think that Rebecca very well may have it just so embedded in the story that it'll be impossible for any of us to truly guess what it is based on our current knowledge and what we have available to us. Take Iron Flame for a perfect example and what it ended up meaning for the story. So anyway, it'll be so much fun to guess this and also just not taking ourselves too seriously.
Well, and something I just thought of is Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, both of those being associated with the Besgaia military structure. We know that she's in her second half of her second year at Besgaia, but what if these two books, I'm pointing to Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, were so embedded in Besgaia, hence having it a little bit in the title? Maybe Onyx Storm is where we venture out fully and we actually aren't at Besgaia. We'll speculate on that a little bit here, but and probably much more obviously in the lead up to Onyx Storm. But that's just something I thought of, is maybe this is actually a representation of how Violet's not going to be as associated with Besgaia.
Yes, and the original plan will not pan out. Yeah, I could definitely see that too. Yep. And of course, Iron Flame, it does not actually mean flame as in the section like Fourth Wing did, but it was definitely a really cool play on words there.
So let us all remember where Iron Flame left off. Let's go back to that emotional trauma we all shared together with the huge cliffhanger of Xaden turning Venom. And given the fact that his eyes are now red rimmed, at least whenever he pulled from the source, I'm going to assume he's going to do it again. So whenever he pulls from the source, we'll talk about that more in a second. Your eyes actually only turn red when you're this level of Venom, which is the lowest level. Your eyes only turn red very so indistinguishably that you have to be up close to a person. Other than that, they look pretty normal, which hence why Jack Barlow was able to blend in with the crowd for so long. But his eyes, we need to talk about Xaden's eyes normally, which are always described as gold-flecked onyx. Bow, 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 bow. Many of us, when we heard Onyx Storm, we circled in on that word onyx, and our thoughts immediately went to our boy Zaddy. So I want to just dissect for a second on the word onyx. Lexi, we got a gemstone watch here.
Oh man, we got a gemstone watch.
So I was looking up the meaning of onyx, and depending on what color onyx it has different meanings. There's a bunch of different ones on the internet. But there was one in particular that really stood out to me that I want to pull for this gemstone watch. In ancient times, onyx was believed to have a demon imprisoned within that would awaken in the night, sowing discord, especially between lovers. Nowadays, strength-giving onyx is a protective stone for dark nights and lonely places. That's ominous! Don't like that! So, demon imprisoned, I think that's pretty obvious with Xaden turning Venom. Obviously, awaken in the night. There's a lot of night shadowing here, and so shadows obviously associated with that. But the sowing discord between lovers is what really, I think, is going to be a huge part of our story. We'll discuss that more in a minute, but I thought that was just so cool to pick out right there. But for shits and giggles, let's look at Onyx Storm as two separate words. And we did an ebook search through both of our books of Iron Flame and Fourth Wing for these two individual words. Now, unsurprisingly, in Fourth Wing, the word onyx is actually only describing Xaden's eyes. There is no other association. Quote, his eyes are the shade of gold flecked onyx. That is in chapter 1 of Fourth Wing.
And then in Iron Flame, again, we get a lot of onyx being described with Xaden's eyes, but we also get a few other additions of how onyx is used. Number 1, the ward stone in Orisha. Violet asks, is it onyx? To which Xaden replies, we can't say for certain, but my father thought it was polished iron. And then there's 2 more instances too, which one here, okay, everybody buckle up. The stone covered in really complex runes that is inside of each wyvern. It is literally an onyx stone. Oh my God. So the wyvern are onyx. Like there is that correlation there too.
The inside, we should say the inside stone to resurrect, as far as we know, the wyvern are
correct.
Onyx.
Yeah, that essentially creates. Yeah, essentially that how the Venom create the wyvern is inserting a rune inside of the wyvern. I have no idea how it then grows, but whatever. I'm sure we'll learn about that. And
all I imagine is like
and
a
that
chia pet that you just described.
I was thinking of like my kids and like how I like put a little thing in their bathtub and then it like the dinosaur becomes a dinosaur. It went from an egg to a dinosaur.
It's like a bath time toy gone wrong.
Yes. Anyway. But yeah, so that is onyx. And then the second one is in the throne scene. Hey, Nicole's favorite scene. And it's when Violet thinks, quote, shimmering onyx wraps around my mind and everything intensifies. Now, of course, we can assume that shimmering onyx is referring to Xaden, because remember how afterward he's kind of like in her head and it's a little bit weird and he's all freaked out about that. But Nicole, you actually had a few other thoughts about what this could mean as well.
So the fact that it was in association with this moment, which if you remember on the podcast, and if not, you've got a lot of podcasting to listen to us dissecting Iron Flame and Fourth Wing. But when we got to the throne scene in Iron Flame, we discussed this exact line right here and how the shimmering onyx wrapping around her mind is actually a different way of her describing how Xaden and her as mind-to-mind speak is normally. So it is a very unique instance here, and how that actually might be a neon sign to her second signet. Now, could the onyx in Onyx Storm be a representation of a second signet for her? Maybe. I'm leaning no, just because that doesn't seem right with how often it's associated with Xaden. Even here, it is an association with Xaden. But if you want to hear us fully dissect the possible second signet possibilities associated with this line right here, check out our throne scene episode of Fourth Wing, which we'll link in the show notes. Now, you might be thinking as we go through these 2 instances of all the onyx, what about Tairn? And the only reason why we were personally leaning away from him being associated with the word onyx here is because he's actually never described in the 2 original books with using the word onyx. And there's a lot of association with Onyx and Xaden. So we're leaning much more towards Xaden than Tairn. However, in Xaden's POV of chapter 16 in the special edition of Fourth Wing, he does describe his mental bond with Tairn as being Onyx. So it could be associated with Tairn, with Onyx. Again, we're leaning no, but also who would have known that Iron Flame meant a ward stone fire? So who knows?
All right. So now that we've outlined where onyx has shown up in our story already, let's shift gears and chat about the second word, storm.
I want to talk about storm symbolism in literature and how it normally refers to, instead of like the rain, go away, it doesn't really refer to the weather report. It instead refers to a more deeper meaning of an internal struggle or inner turmoil, which again, ominous, but I'm definitely, knowing Rebecca's writing style, I'm leaning more towards the deeper meaning here behind the word storm. I don't think it means like crackle, bah, like despite having lightning as one of the signets we're working with here. I want to do a quick shout out to Michelle2213 for sharing this on the Discord today behind the storm symbolism. Thank you so much. You rock. Now, obviously, the thing we most associate storm here with is Lilith Sorrengail, her signet, RIP, my girl, and Violet's lightning. However, 2 things I want to just point out here with this word being associated with Violet. We know that her signet from Tairn after reading Iron Flame, it is not like lightning wielder, it is power wielder that manifests itself in lightning, at least for now. That's exciting to think about. Also, it is basically confirmed from the Variety article that was released right after Iron Flame that book 3 will be having a lot of Violet discovering her second signet, which is kind of surprising that the second word in this title is storm, that's what gives me pause in thinking that this is actually associated with Violet. I think it's associated with something very differently that we'll talk about soon. So I'm actually leaning towards Storm not being involved with Violet's signet at all.
Interesting.
I'll tell you more in a second.
Oh, well, like we did for Onyx, we also did an ebook search for Storm. In Fourth Wing, Storm is mostly associated with Lilith. There's also a storm as Violet crosses the parapet. Violet mentions loving storms and how they calm her. And of course, one of our favorite lines, quote, "I am the sky and the power of every storm that has ever been. I am infinite." So Storm also in that moment, it means power and control. And again, it really ties into her feeling connected to that signet.
Now, looking ahead at Iron Flame, it is again mainly associated with Lilith. There is one mention of another storm wielder in First Wing. If this First Wing storm wielder is so important that he's suddenly the book title, I will be shocked. But there's a storm the night of Violet's fight with the Venin in Takaris's house, little Venin arena. Then we also get in chapter 56, aka the Intrinsic Come to Light chapter. Violet thinks a storm is rolling in, but no, it is a horde of wyvern. You mean the things with an onyx stone inside of them? Yes, those things. Violet describes herself as a storm, and this is where I think Storm is coming from. Xaden says to Violet, quote, "What we build together has to be strong enough to withstand a storm." I think Xaden is the Onyx Storm. I think that he is the thing that they are going to have to be strong enough to overcome together. This decision that he has made to become a Venin. Dude, what a choice. Now, does this mean he's going to go full villain mode and that will be the big cliffhanger? I don't know. But I think that his choice and what he has made and how this affects him and Violet, I think that he is the Onyx Storm that they have to be together on and be strong enough to withstand. Now, another option for this Onyx Storm is that horde of wyvern. If the Onyx Storm is not a physical storm, but a perceived storm of these Onyx, resurrected wyvern coming for them, I could see that as well. I like my Xaden as the Onyx Storm a lot more, but that's why I'm leaning away from it actually being associated with Violet. Now, it could be like
both.
It could be both. Yeah.
It could be some and that's, I love the idea of that double meaning there. But I love that he is the Onyx Storm that they have to essentially overcome together. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we need to just call this out again. Rebecca Yarros is a plot master. So Storm and Onyx could be associated with an event in the book. I could also see us having a flashback moment in regards to a storm. So let's say, for instance, Violet's second signet is talking to the dead. Maybe she resurrects one of the first six, or maybe she resurrects Papa Sorrengail. One can only hope. And this resurrected person gives us a huge download of something really, really, really important that happened. Maybe it happened during a storm. So that is another option. Or hell, maybe Violet will actually ride Andarna in this book, and maybe that'll be the first time they do that together in a storm. That's a possibility.
Yes, I absolutely could see it being a really big event that catapults our story in one way or another. I will say my gut is leaning towards it being more of a symbolic nature that reflects both Xaden and Violet, the looming darkness and the power that they have to overcome, whether that's your Onyx Storm idea that it is embodying Xaden, or that it is more of like that yin and yang where he's the Onyx and she's the Storm.
So speaking of that, with it being symbolic of both Xaden and Violet, one of the things that a lot of people have assumed with this next book, especially since Onyx is something we so highly associate with Xaden, is that this could be a dual POV book. Some people are thinking it could just be a Xaden book, or it could be a Xaden going back to Fourth Wing and retelling the story through his point of view. I think we can fully say that will not happen because of how often Rebecca has said book 3, book 3, book 3. She's not saying book 4, y'all. This is book 3. We have confirmed that this is book 3.
And she does not have the time to write a Xaden POV of a previous book or a novella, or she is focused focused on book 3, and that is what she is writing. There are only so many hours in the day.
So I think it's pretty safe to say that if this is going to include more Xaden POVs than, the one per chapter that we've gotten in each individual book, not including special editions, it could be a dual POV. It definitely could, especially with Onyx being so associated with Xaden and Storms with Violet. That makes me nervous, though, because why would it need to be a dual POV? Are they going to be separated? Is he going to do that heroic dude thing where he's like, you're safer without me, meh, and yeet out of there? Or is she, she is still at her second year at Besgaiath. So if she does not leave the school and she actually stays there, it might be more of them being separate due to the same nature that they were separate at the beginning of Iron Flame. If it is a dual POV, though, I am feral for more Xaden and Sigale. I can't wait. Oh my God. And Xaden and Garrick, I want Sigale to rip Xaden a new asshole next book. I'm so excited. But also, if it is through his point of view, like, might we get some more of his mom? We have confirmation that she's going to show up in the story at some point. We don't know if that's in book 3 or beyond. But if it is in Xaden's POV more, I could see us furthering along his storyline with his mom quicker. I don't know.
And you know what? I just realized if we do get more of his POV, I bet you will finally find out what Garrett's signet is.
Yes.
Which is one of those things that's like, it doesn't really, really matter, but man, it does keep you up at night sometimes.
Well, and also, like, we might figure out this whole mystery behind Bodhi looks just like Xaden. Bodhi looks just like Xaden. We might get some more insight into his backstory.
Somebody on our Discord cracked the code for his family tree and how the Besgaiath records show that Sigale was bonded with his great uncle, not his grandfather. And so I really do. I keep meaning to make a social post about it. It is absolutely incredible and give her full credit, but I will save that for another day.
We should note that this person makes family trees and like genealogy, like that's part of their job. Like the second it was posted, Lexi texted me with a photo of it and was like, oh my God. Let's just say there's a mysterious person that's kind of the key to everything with that family tree. So I'm so excited.
I can't wait to break down that possible family tree. Shouts to you, SS Archivist. You are amazing, and I can't wait to share your discovery. Anyway, moving on. I definitely do think that we are going to be getting more Xaden POV in the third book, like full stop, more than just the one chapter at the end of each of the books like we previously have. At the end of Iron Flame, he was gung-ho on staying at Besgaiath, or at least within Navarre's wards, so his venom power isn't as strong. But I also don't see Mr. Xaden Ryerson as a guy who just sits around at Besgaiath when there's a lot of other problems to solve. So I think he would want to go off and try to fix things, but on his own without Violet to keep her safe and separated from him when he's beyond the wards. So I definitely could see them being separated with him essentially refusing to let her join him because he is going to be out beyond the wards and he does not want to be a danger to her.